Saw this interesting recipe on RedNote of these eggplant rolls with meat inside, and I figured I'd make an Italian sort of version of this. With cheese, of course. So I'm going to get started with a pretty standard tomato sauce here. Got a saucepan over medium-high heat. I'll add a little bit of olive oil. And this is actually way too much olive oil. I should probably use a tablespoon at most. Next, I minced up some garlic. I always like using the side of my knife to release the cloves from their skin. Chop off the little butts. And you want to mince this pretty fine here, so you don't have any big chunks of garlic floating around in your sauce. I'll add in the garlic. I like to throw in a couple of fresh basil leaves at the beginning. They fry a little bit in the oil, release a little bit of their oils, and it just adds a deeper, richer sort of flavor. Yeah, you can totally see how much oil is in here right now. That is not good, but we'll try and fix it later. Next I've got some San Marzano tomatoes. These are the ones that are straight from Italy, but you could use whatever you got. For some reason, the ones they import into the States are always whole and never crushed, so that's not really a big deal. You just gotta spend a little extra time crushing them. The traditional way is to do it with your hands, but I usually use a potato masher because it gets the work done a little bit cleaner. I'll add those into the saucepan. Give them a good stir to mix in all the garlic and basil. Add a little bit of salt, bring that to a simmer. Then we can reduce the heat down to medium-low. And let that go for about 30 minutes until it reduces a little bit and the flavor deepens. Next I'll work on the eggplant. Chopping off the leaves. And I'm going to slice these as thinly as I can with a knife. At home I would use a mandolin and probably go for a couple millimeters. But I'm at my broken house, as my daughter likes to call it, which I'm fixing up slowly. So I'm stuck using a knife. I found the easiest way to do this is cut the eggplant in half, then run the knife down the length of it, keeping it as parallel to the table as possible. Now I want to soften these up so they're easier to roll. I'll also get some of the bitter juice out of there. So I'll lay these on a plate. Give them a light dusting of salt. Put another plate on top. With this heavy cast iron pan on top of that. And I'll leave it for about a half an hour until it starts to get all bendy. Pat it dry with some paper towels to get all the excess moisture off of there. And at this point we're ready to work on our filling. I'm basically going to be making a traditional-ish Neapolitan-style meatball. In this case I'm using chicken just to see how it tastes, because my wife doesn't eat red meats, so I want to see if this will work for the whole family. Traditionally you'd use a mix of ground beef, ground pork, ground veal. You want a nice balance of fat and flavor. Along with that, typically I would add some breadcrumbs, but all I had on hand was a hamburger bun, which, you know what, it's white bread, that's what we usually use for breadcrumbs. I think it'll work. I'm going to tear in some fresh basil. Just to save on some effort, I'll throw in some powdered garlic, along with some chili flakes, some pre-ground black pepper, a little bit of salt, and some grated parm. Almost forgot to put in an egg to bind it all together. And although it's messiest, it's kind of easiest to mix it by hand. Sometimes I use a fork, but you don't really get the feel of like how well mixed everything is. So, hands it is for this one. I'm going to spread that along each of my eggplant slices. Since we're going to roll this up, you can go pretty thin on it. but it's kind of up to you. If you want them to be extra meaty, then go for it. And as you roll them up, the meat's going to squeeze around a little bit, so don't worry about any missed spots. It'll end up evening on out. And there we go. We got a little eggplant sushi roll. It's a lot easier than I thought it would be. I thought that the meat would go squeezing out the sides and they wouldn't stick together, but yeah, they turned out really surprisingly easy. So yeah, don't worry about the skill required for this. Alright, I've got a skillet over medium-high heat. Don't want to make it too hot. We're going to be shallow frying these, so I'll add in some light olive oil. And you can set up a dredging station if you want. That'll make these a little bit crispier, but I'm just going with some flour because that's what I got on hand. Again, I don't really have breadcrumbs at the house, but they should brown up pretty well with just the flour dredge. I could also dunk them in eggs as well to get a little bit more of a fluffy, battery coat, but it is what it is. Throw those in for, a few minutes on each side. It's hard to gauge. It really depends on how much oil you have in your pan, how high the oil is going to go. You got to keep rotating them as they get golden on each side to make sure that you're cooking all the chicken all the way through. And, make sure that it all gets up to the appropriate, safe eating temperature for chicken. I think it's 165 Fahrenheit. You can see as these are going, they're starting to get nice and golden. Once they're golden on all sides, remove them out to a paper towel to drain off. And we can get ready to assemble our sort of casserole, lasagna, whatever you want to call this. Standard Southern Italian stuff in a tray with sauce and cheese. So into a baking tray or baking dish, vessel of some sort, you can put a thin layer of tomato sauce just to make sure the bottom doesn't burn and get stuck. I'm going to throw my rolls on top. Next, I'll cover them all up with a layer of tomato sauce. Got a little bit of ricotta here just to make things interesting. Kind of adding a little bit of lasagna flair to it. Then some low moisture mozzarella. You could use the fresh stuff too, but this doesn't let out as much water. So it ends up being a less runny sort of dish. It also melts a little bit nicer at low temperature. And of course we got to throw some parm on top so it crisps up a little bit. I'm doing this in my toaster oven just to save some energy. I set it to 375 for about 30 minutes, which should be enough time to melt the cheese and crisp up the top. And when it's done, it looks like this. Beautifully crispy cheese on top. Some nice steam coming out of there. And I don't know about you, but I think this looks absolutely delicious. And the flavor is, on par with what you'd expect. All the ingredients that are going on. It's kind of an eggplant parm kind of thing, sort of. Kind of eggplant rollatini-ish. But you've got that meat in there that adds another layer of flavor. Just really nicely seasoned meatballs. These ones are very light because of the chicken, and I can imagine they would be even more flavorful with proper beef and pork meatballs inside there. But yeah, it's sort of a weird hybrid between eggplant parm and lasagna. I guess you can call them rollatini or involtini. They kind of are, essentially, but I haven't really seen them like this with mincemeat inside. So thank you to Xiaoguo's Food Diary for making your video on Red Note and inspiring me to make this here. It's cool seeing the sort of culture sharing that's happening over there on Red Note. So check it out if you haven't already. Anyway, hope you guys make this or put your own spin on it and let me know how it turned out. See you next time. Cheers.